I think the central tension of the show is the fact that they have great chemistry. They really like each other. They got on really well. They're attracted to each other. It's a wholesome, genuine, sincere, good relationship. It's a good relationship. What is the problem? So what should he do? He should break off with this girl and marry some horrible Jewish girl that he doesn't like. That's better. Again, assuming there are no great Jewish girls, just for now, for the sake of this question.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, it's a false binary, but we'll go with it, right?
Yeah, right. False binary. Either amazing non-Jewish girl or a horrible Jewish girl.
Right. False binary, but let's go with it, right?
Okay.
Ready?
This is the Dilemmas on Screen, a Jewish perspective podcast, where we take ambiguous moral situations in fictional popular movies and TV shows and analyze them from a Torah lens. So, Rabbi Rick, it's great to have you back again.
Thank you so much. Ophir, it's always a pleasure to be here. I'm very, very grateful to be back again.
We're getting to Nobody Wants This, some bit of juicy territory.
Yeah, very juicy.
Yes. So I guess just as a quick summary was Nobody Wants This is about this Reform rabbi, Noah, who's dating this girl, Joanne, who is not Jewish. And that effectively becomes the central conflict of the show in terms of Noah wants her to convert. He doesn't want to force her. Joanne wants to be with him and really likes Rabbi Noah, but she wants it to be her conversion to come from a place of conviction. First, she's not even sure that she wants to. She doesn't want to get in Rabbi Noah's way in terms of his career, with potentially becoming the head rabbi. That's really the central conflict of the show.
Right.
We have a number of questions about this. Obviously, what does Judaism see about intermarriage? That's the obvious central question. But there are other things too, in terms of, people might ask, like, look, it might feel like archaic. Like, what do you mean we're not going to date somebody outside of our religion or ethnicity? Like, what's with that? And also, doesn't Judaism change? Like, why can't this change too? What makes intermarriage such a big deal? What does it even mean to be Jewish? Why can't you just sign a sheet of paper and become Jewish? And that's that. It seems to be this whole serious involved process. But that's for later. For now, intermarriage. How does Judaism view it? Why is it such a big deal? Is it such a big deal? Let's go.
Excellent questions, sensitive questions, and have to be dealt with one by one. I don't know if I have enough time to deal with everything on one episode. There's so many monumental things here. And I think it also depends on what view we're going to take. Are we going to go 30,000 feet up to, the Kabbalistic mystical concept of what's going on here? Are we going to apply from the absolute practical of continuity of the species, we'll call it, of Judaism? There's a lot of different ways to approach this. And certainly, you mentioned denominations immediately. So let's just start there. The idea that there is Orthodox, conservative, Reform, and Reconstructionist denominations, that is already a challenge that has to be discussed and dealt with. Orthodox Jews did not coin that phrase. That phrase Orthodox was not coined.
What phrase? Intermarriage?
Orthodox.
Oh, God. Okay. They didn't coin the term Orthodox. Okay. Right. Sorry. Go on.
I actually should know what that means, but my family's Reform. We came from Reform. My great-grandmother's father was one of the founders of American Reform Jewry, coming over from Alsace-Lorraine in Germany. And the idea of how do we modernize this? How do we make Judaism palatable to the masses so we don't lose everybody was really where they were coming from. And of course, over time, it doesn't work. So there's a practical understanding of why the thoughts, ideas, and continuity of Reform, and we'll throw conservative in there too, just do not work. The practicality of that is different than discussing the spirituality of that. But the intentions of these movements which began, and then of course when they said people are Orthodox, that means basically people that refuse to change, which is not true, as you said, Ophir. Judaism does over millennia adapt, but within a certain construct, and there's certain constraints that we adapt and mobilize. So for example, on Shabbat, we use electricity. We don't not use electricity. But how we use that is going to be constrained to how the Torah lays that out. So what I prefer is Torah Judaism. How does Torah Judaism look at intermarriage, not Orthodox? Because I think we're all Jews.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. And I like that. I actually remember the first time I heard someone coin the term, like, I'm a Torah Jew. I don't like the term Orthodox. I was like, right. Yeah, I like that. That's good.
100%. And by the way, whatever somebody does or doesn't do, okay, like everybody's on different levels, like that's not up to us. But the idea that we're going to redefine things. So what happens is like this. In the movement that we'll call Reform, which is how I grew up, the idea that there could be intermarriage and a Jewish male could marry, a non-Jewish woman of any ethnicity, background, whatever it is, was considered, we We are spreading the faith. We're making the faith broader. We're actually expanding the tent of Jews and therefore helping the religion. From the Torah perspective, it's the exact opposite. We're actually diluting what we're trying to accomplish and actually destroying the seed of what Judaism could be. And the question is, why is that? And I think there's some technicalities that have to be discussed that will ultimately lead us to understand, well, why is that true? Why is it that, and a lot of people probably know this, but why is it that a Jew comes from the mother? What is that?
Right. And I do want to say, because I don't think the show discusses at all.
Not.
They don't care about like the kids. The kids aren't even discussed, right?
So let's not do a bait and switch. Let's go into the show. Let's not be like, oh, this was all a ruse to talk about this. No, let's get into the show. What is Noah doing wrong? So it really depends on what perspective you're bringing into this. And I think you said it beautifully as you introduced it. You said Joanne is struggling with conversion because she wants it to come from herself.
Right.
Let's talk about that for a second and pretend like everything's hunky-dory, okay?
Okay.
Let's say for 1 second that if Joanne doesn't convert, and let's even say reform, with her whole heart, it doesn't work. Let's just put that into the thing. Can we understand why that's true?
So if I can be honest, no. Because if I I'll say why. Like, so I'm Canadian, right? I'm not American.
I'm so sorry to hear that. Are you okay? Do you want me to come over there and help you? Do you need anything? Get this man some fireworks on July 4th immediately.
Yeah.
He's actually lying down on an ice rink. What you see behind you is not a white wall. It's actually him horizontal on an ice rink.
I will actually quote like the Mighty Ducks. And as a kid, and I heard Coach Bombay be like, I was born on the ice. I was like, that's so cool.
Exactly.
I was like, I want to see that.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's so Canadian.
So you're Canadian, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, but so the point is I'm Canadian. I live in the US, right? My wife's American. We live in Chicago. And I don't know, like, let's say if I were to become an American citizen, like I'm assuming there's a certain amount of paperwork I need to sign.
Yes.
And do whatever I need to do. It would be with my whole heart. I mean, first, I'm not American, so I don't know. Maybe once I do it, I would. But like, I don't know. Is it like 100% full-hearted? Let's say it isn't. I would still be American. I signed the paperwork. We went through. That's it. Done. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like,
right. So it works on paper. Now you have to take an oath, by the way. So you're lying. If you become American that way, you're lying. So you're American. You're not American. You're American.
Well, yeah. Like I have a passport. I'm a citizen.
You're not. But like you're like.
You could say I'm a liar, but
yeah, but you're American in terms of like technically you signed a piece of paper, but like you hate America. But so let's talk about that, right? So when you sign the paperwork, yes, you lied, but it works because it's a piece of paper. The government actually doesn't know. But what it means to be Jewish in a real way means that you're really talking about a relationship with God. God knows what you're thinking.
God knows. Right. Fair enough.
So now if you don't believe it, you don't feel that way, it actually doesn't work. Will your spouse think you're Jewish? Yes. Are you Jewish? No. And the Maimonides, who has the most, let's call it lenient opinion here when it comes to conversion, still says in that mikveh, in that water of your new mother you're creating for yourself, you have to have thoughts of, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take on being Jewish. I believe everything. I want to be a part of it. Now, it could be a week later, you don't want to anymore. That won't change. Now you're Jewish no matter what. Now you're just a regular run-of-the-mill Jew who doesn't like being Jewish. But to get in, you have to have that sincere aspect of, I really want this. So when we talk about the show, Nobody Wants This, that's the perfect title. If Joanne doesn't want to be Jewish, she can't become Jewish. Because to your point, you're signing a piece of paper. Why would that work on a spiritual level? You want to talk about what Sunday school she can send her kids to? So I have lots of friends who marry out. My best friends growing up, I think the vast majority of them have married non-Jewish women. I remember speaking to one about this once. And I just, he's like, I'm going to raise my kids Jewish. And I said to him, you can raise your kid Native American. That's fine. That's a culture. That's wonderful. You want to say Jewish culture is great? Awesome. Power to you. Not Jewish. When you talk about spiritual worlds and the spiritual idea of what a soul is, I said, you have to listen to what I have to say, because I've studied this at the time it was 5 years. Now it's been 20 years, but like, I'm begging you, listen to me. If you don't want to, that's fine. You want to raise your kid culturally Jewish? I think Jewish culture is awesome. We're talking about the soul. If you don't want to talk about the soul, bavakasha, Reform, Jewish, the whole thing,
Well, no, what you said is actually kind of funny because that actually is a line in the show. So Noah's sister-in-law says, like tells Joanne, you're basically Jewish. You feel Jewish to me. The whole thing is just a feeling. But I am at the moment still, admittedly, just a little confused. Like, we're talking about identity. Does she believe in it? Does she not believe in it? We know that, like, look, if you're born Jewish, we don't care what you believe. You're a Jew. In terms of, there are certainly Jewish beliefs that a Jew should subscribe to.
That's if you're going to convert. And we have to explain why that's true.
That's
so where's the confusion?
I guess my confusion is, I just suspect if I were to listen to this episode and I was like, why is it wrong for Noah to be dating Joanne? What is fundamentally wrong with it?
Mm-hmm.
I am not sure what my takeaway is at this moment. Like, and is it just a belief in terms of, I guess another way of phrasing it is, Noah was apparently, I think, engaged to some Jewish girl who he clearly did not like very much, and it ended. And then he meets Joanne, and Joanne doesn't want anything messy. And Noah's like, look, it's not going to be messy. Let's just try it. And then it works great. And Joanne's this great girl. I think the central tension of the show is the fact that they have great chemistry. They really like each other. They got on really well. They're attracted to each other. They clearly they help each other. It's just like a great relationship. It's a wholesome, genuine, sincere, good relationship. It's a good relationship. What is the problem? What is the problem? So what should he do? He should break off with this girl and marry some horrible Jewish girl that he doesn't like. That's better. That's the way you phrase it to me. That's an excellent question. Like, what is wrong here?
Yeah.
I think that is the central question that people would be asking is, what is wrong with Noah marrying this great girl? What is the alternative? Again, assuming there are no great Jewish girls, just for now, for the sake of this question.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, it's a false binary, but we'll go with it, right?
Yeah, right. False binary. Either amazing non-Jewish girl or a horrible Jewish girl.
Right. False binary, but let's go with it, right?
Okay.
Ready? Nothing is wrong with it. If we're looking at sociologically, relationship-wise, therapy bills, how much fighting is in the house, procreation of a species called humans, maybe Joanne is great. You asked a very specific question. Why is it wrong for Noah, a Jew, to marry a non-Jewish woman? That is only relevant if we are concerned and interested in creating more Jewish spirituality and souls. If we are not interested in that, if that is not a priority, then what's wrong with it? Nothing.
Well, hang on a second. I'm going to push back a little more. If we're already tweaking this, let's say, God forbid, they're infertile. Okay, they can't have children.
Yeah.
Now is there a problem?
Right. That's a great question. So now it becomes much more technical, to your point, right?
Right.
So
and I think because people might want to not, because I think the show does not talk about children, which must be a choice, right? There's no way that this would not enter a real conversation.
So your point is excellent. They're not having kids, they're infertile, whatever, and now they're together. So now we have to look and say, well, what is my priority? The word priority is a singular word. It became plural only in the last 100 years. Look up Webster's dictionary, the word priority, there can only be one priority. If that priority is, what does the Torah say and what does God expect from me and want from me? Now we can talk about that. Because now you've removed every externality. You've removed the children, you've removed, everything else, you've removed the community, you've removed everything. So you're right. Maybe there is a fundamentally, let's call it a practical reason that Noah should marry Joanne, and not be lonely the rest of his life. That would depend on, do you really believe in Torah? Because who says intermarriage is worse than not keeping Shabbat? Who says intermarriage is worse? We have to play around with every possible different mitzvah and every possible word of God and start stacking them up, because now you're really talking about, just the physical relationship that we're having a Jew with a non-Jew, because now we've taken family and kids and souls out of it. So now it really comes down to the moral and value-based priority of how much I subscribe to Torah.
Yes, and the reason why I want to do that is because that really seems to be the central focus of the show in terms of it's Rabbi Noah who's concerned about marrying this non-Jewish girl, mostly because I guess like his career or it just, but like Judaism is so important to him. How can he be a rabbi? First, he's not going to get the promotion that he wants.
Right.
And like, how does he internalize these like Jewish values? How does he live these Jewish values if he's dating a non-Jew? We could build from there.
But hang on, Ophir,
Yeah.
hang on.
Yeah.
As soon as you say his job, his constituents, that's children. Now you're back to the first question again. That's not fair. It's not your question.
Okay, fine. Sorry. So
because now I'm a bad example, and now it doesn't work. Your question is only isolated if they live by themselves with no interaction with other people. Otherwise, my children thing comes back. Well, how's it going to affect the community? And people are going to get confused. And nope, not good anymore. If you're now you've lost the oomph of your question. Because now I can say to you, it's terrible for a rabbi to intermarry because it's a terrible example because all the reasons we said earlier. So you can't do that.
So that is fair, but I think what might bother. So there are actually a couple of different ways I want to go with this.
Are you talking about only the two of them in a room together by themselves, or do you mean how this affects the Jewish people? You talk about the Jewish people. How does this affect Judaism and its ability to create new Jews and what it does to the community? That is a great reason for Noah to not marry her. That is not your question.
You know what though? I'm glad you're stressing that point because I guess what makes me uncomfortable is it almost sounds like we're concerned about intermarriage because of its effect on the community, because of its effect on your children.
So that is a practical reason as to how we approach this.
Right, but that cannot be the central answer. I just cannot believe that the reason why intermarriage is a problem is because, oh, well, look how it affects other people and your children, the community. So there's no issue with the intermarriage itself?
Yeah, there is an issue. It is, but I said very clearly, how am I supposed to stack up a physical relationship that we're not allowed to have of a Jew and a non-Jew versus a cheeseburger versus Shabbos? That is no longer a fair question because now you've isolated it to, hey, when a non-Jew and a Jew become boyfriend and girlfriend and they're living together and they're physical together, what's the problem? And I don't want to hear about how it affects other people. So the answer is, I don't know. Torah says you're not allowed to, and I don't know how it stacks up to anything else because you've isolated it.
So that is actually, because now I am getting clearer. So what you're saying is it's like eating a cheeseburger. It's like violating Shabbat. It is a violation of the Torah. It is not allowed. Hang on. So wait, just to be clear, that's the answer. If we're isolating all other things,
Noah being with society, no job.
Awesome. Okay, it's a prohibition. It's prohibited by the Torah in the same way that mixing milk and meat is, the same way that eating bacon is, in the same way that violating the Torah is. That is all. Is that correct? Am I understanding that correctly?
Now we can talk about why is that. Okay, so let's just pause there for a second. Why is that true? So the answer is why it's not true is this.
Sorry, why it is true?
Why it is true? Why they can't be together? So first of all, the most we're gonna get is called like a znus, like an improper sexual relationship. So let's double click on that for a second. Okay, the compatibility. Whatever that means, it's like, how do I put you want to download an application to your computer and you downloaded the Apple version, but you have a PC. It's not going to run. It doesn't run. It just does not run on there. So we're talking about a spiritual incompatibility. But as soon as you say that, now you're laddering back to where we started from. So when you talk about just the pure intimate act, yes, we are absolutely the same place. So you can't have a cheeseburger because what else is there? You're talking about no externalities. Now, it is doing something to you because the Torah says you can't do it. It will negatively affect yours. By the way, the non-Jew is not doing anything wrong. The non-Jew is not prohibited from this. This is the Jewish problem.
Wow, interesting. Okay.
So it's going to create that blockage we talk about, the tumtum alev. It's going to cause those things that we speak about when we talk about why you also can't have a cheeseburger. But it's going to level up to what your level of sensitivity is. And I don't know that I have the shoulders to say that a non-Jew having intimate physical relationship with a Jew with no externality is worse than not keeping kosher or not keeping Shabbat. Or I don't think I have the shoulders to say such a thing. I think if you isolate it down, we're talking about that passage in the Torah, like other passages, we're not allowed to do it.
So now I feel like I'm clear. Got it. So there's a spiritual incompatibility. It is a prohibition in the Torah. You're not allowed to do it, just like you can't have a cheeseburger, no bacon, etc. All right. So now let's start building up the externalities.
Yeah, okay.
If that's okay, just because
Sure.
now I'm clear. Just because it just felt weird to be like, oh yeah, it's just like the kids in the community. I was like, hang on, wait, so there's no actual issue with the relationship itself.
And let's
That
go with the
can't be
job
right.
and the career and everything. Throw it now. You can start building up on it.
Okay, now let's build up. Okay, so now if you're going to say that, but it seems like, I mean, does he care? I'm actually trying to think live. Like, does he actually care about that? I mean, it seems like, let's just say he does or doesn't. It doesn't matter. But now he's also concerned about his career. It's funny because I actually need to think about this. Like, what's the next step? I guess at the end of season 2, maybe we'll just to help the full like
season 3. I don't know.
Right. At the end of season 2, he goes up to her. So first, at the end of season 1, she says, I can't force you to choose. I don't want to be that person to make you choose. And so the clear implication is choose between me or Judaism. And she's like, I can't do that to you. And I'm not sure I fully buy in. So I'm out. And she leaves. And he chases after her. Which is what disappointing. Which is whatever. It is what it is. And then at the beginning of season 2, literally in the first episode, there was apparently a misunderstanding where he thought she was potentially on board with converting, just needed some time. And she thought the whole conversion question was off the table. And that's kind of the setting for season 2. And then at the end of season 2, and then like towards the end, Rabbi Noah tells her like, look, I don't want you to wake up in 20 years from now and like be angry at me because I forced you to choose or something like that. The point is, I don't want to force you to be
just
someone.
Think about how selfish this young man is for just a second.
Yeah.
It's bananas selfish. You have to do this for me because it's embarrassing for me if I don't. I can't get promoted if I don't. My family won't approve if I don't. What a selfish jerk. He doesn't even care about the Torah. Like the whole thing is insane. And by the way, what I would say is if I was her, I would go Rava style, in the Gemara, I'd say, according to your own reasoning, this is not going to work. Like, I'm not bought in. I have to leave you.
I actually saw a great article from Jew in the City, and she did it. Like, she did an amazing job.
Get her on here. You can have her on here. You can fire me.
Yeah. No. I was just like, I want to get a sense of how did people react to this? What are people saying? Just to see what are the issues that people actually contend with this show. And she said, like, it was quite beautiful in terms of Joanne chooses self-actualization, and Noah's self-actualization is throwing his Judaism away. Joanne's real, dude. She's real. She says she's like, she's like, I don't know that I'm willing to do this, and she makes a tough decision. And honestly, good for her.
Yes.
And then it's Noah who goes chase after her when apparently he says, "Oh, I'm like Judaism is so important to me." Well, apparently not.
Apparently not. But that's it exactly. Bang. And by the way, between you and me, were they physical?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, come on. Like he is. Now you got to get into men and women. How this works, what that's all about. You could reverse it if it was a Jewish girl and a non-Jewish boy. It really comes down to the weakness that Noah has of not having a priority. And you asked a great question. Is it better for him not to get married? Well, what are we talking about? Because we're talking about kids and community. We already dealt with that. How technical are we going to get here? But clearly he's weak. Clearly he doesn't have a priority. And yes, we're going to ladder up to, is this the type of person who also wouldn't have a cheeseburger? And if I was Joanne, I would say, I don't understand. You don't care about cheeseburgers. You don't care about Shabbos. Why does this matter so much to you? And clearly it's because he's embarrassed and because he cares about what other people think about him. And therefore he is a loser.
Dude, I love
and
it.
that you can print. The guy's a loser, total loser. He doesn't have any self-respect. And I said, what a loser, this guy.
That's a great impression.
You want to do it that way? I can do it the other way too. Joanne, if I can speak for myself, it's a bad idea. Shouldn't marry him. He's a total loser. See that one into
Obama. Nice.
Let me be clear. Don't do it. Don't marry him. He's a total dweeb. I passed him the marijuana and he just didn't smoke it. He's a total dork. And I wouldn't marry him.
Dude, these impressions are amazing. So next question. All right. So now that we have clarity in terms of whether or not intermarriage is okay. We see that there's an issue just with the relationship itself. I do want to talk for a moment, just I guess to clarify with the whole continuity issue. I know that's not something that comes up in the show, but it just seems crazy not to. I mean, clearly Noah's parents, or at least his mother, has a huge problem with this. So I do want to get into like, why is it an issue? And I don't know if this is the same question. You can choose whether or not it is. We spoke briefly about how, like, I'm Canadian. If I become American, do I become more American? Like, and then you can say there isn't such a big difference between being Canadian and American. Well, let's say I moved to Panama, right? And I became a Panaman citizen. In terms of, there's a legal process through which I have to go. Once I become Panaman, then you're in. Now, would Panamans accept me as Panaman? I would assume not. Like, I don't know much about Panaman culture. I don't know how much I would learn in whatever the year I was there. And I would assume that...
Yeah, and by the way, this is why the Torah warns us, I don't know, 40 times, 30 times, you Google it, you have to be nice to the convert. You have to take in the convert. And I think the reason is this point you're bringing up. It's not a technical thing. It's not like I got the citizenship of Judaism and I'm in. And you should just know that in Great Britain in the 1800s, they banned the Beit Din there, the high court banned conversion for a series of years because the only community taking care of poor people were the Jews. And therefore, people were trying to convert in order to get the services offered by the Jewish community. And they were concerned that people were converting for the wrong reasons, which would make them not Jewish. That's the point.
Whoa. Okay, got it. So I guess that's... hang on. So that is fascinating. But I asked the question, like... I
answered your question. You become a Panamanian citizen. Yes, you have a document that gets you in and out of Panama. But everyone knows you're an outsider. You're a gringo, whatever they call it there. You know, they're not in. You have a technical check, which is why I think in America they call it the Great Melting Pot, and why there's such a conflict today about immigration is about, well, 1 second, are these people American? You're like, what do you mean? They signed the paper like Ilhan Omar is American. It's like, yeah, but she hates America. So is she like, how does that work?
Right.
So this is the problem. When it comes to conversion and it comes to Judaism, the intention matters. It's not a document. It is not a stamp on a passport. It doesn't work like that.
You know, one thing that people will say, like, a person's response might be to the show is like, look, maybe this is so bad because Noah is the Jewish person and Joanne is the non-Jew. And maybe if it was just flipped, maybe if the woman was right. Jewish, then the kids would also be Jewish and we'd be okay. Now, right. I'm not actually entirely clear on this, but I think do Reform even accept that tenet? Or do they say, as long as one parent is Jewish, then you're Jewish too? Like, I don't
think either tenet apply. I believe in the Reform doctrine, the idea is it's very similar to how we deem somebody in Christian thought to be Christian. They decide in their mind. We decide in my mind, I'm Jewish, so then we are, maybe there'll be a couple of ceremonies, whatever it is, but then that person can convert and is considered Jewish. And it would be an idea in the mind. In Torah Judaism, from the mystical perspective, there is no such thing as I'm more Jewish than you. Something that my father used to say of a blessed memory was, now that you're, Rick, you became this Shomer Shabbat observant Jew, your friends might think I'm less Jewish than you. And I'm like, no, Dad, like everyone's the same Jewish. It's literally binary. It's one. I'm one, you're one, that person is one. And these people who are not Jewish are zero. And it doesn't matter if their father's Jewish and those things have to be understood and discussed. And we have to be sensitive. And there is a category called what's called Zera Yisrael, which means they come from Jewish stock from the father's side. And that does have a different way of how we look at that and how we deal with that. That is a different situation. But nonetheless, there is something called a spiritual component that comes from the mother that can never be erased and also is there whether you like it or not.
Right. And that makes sense. So I guess Judaism comes from the mother. So like, what is the source for that? Because the one I definitely heard growing up was, you're Jewish if your mother is Jewish because we can always know who the mother is. That's, very straightforward biological reason.
So that actually is not even true. Because when you think about in a second, if you think about BBF and artificial insemination, so the authorities discuss what happens if you take a non-Jewish embryo and put it into a Jewish mother. Is the baby Jewish?
Good question. I don't know. What
Right. So the recent authorities are deciding on these things, and it's not so simple. And it's not so simple. So I think that already, from a technical perspective, blows up the idea that, oh, it's because in ancient times we couldn't know where they came from. I was like, well, why wouldn't the father matter more than that? So I think it's important to understand in Torah Judaism, in mysticism, what does the father bring? What does the mother bring? And what are these technicalities and how do they work?
Right. That's fair. So I guess let's, sorry.
I stumped him, guys. I stumped Ophir on his own show. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do now.
I'm not trying to take it from there. So I'll let you go.
No, tell me, what are your thoughts? What are you feeling?
Look,
there's a picture of our Moshe Shapiro behind you.
Yes.
So I read a piece from Moshe Shapiro. This is for those out there, this is our Big's Big. This is our Rebbe's Rebbe. And Moshe points out a beautiful idea that basically, let's say someone converts into Judaism, legit. Okay, what tribe are they a part of? So,
interesting. I'm assuming like you mean tribes. Like there are 12 tribes.
There are 12 tribes.
And like, are you part of the tribe of Yehuda, like Judah?
You convert in. What tribe are you? Right.
Right. Fair enough. I'm assuming. Now you could decide whether or not you're Ashkenazi or Sephardi, but I don't know how that works in terms of tribe.
Goose egg. You get nothing. You're not in a tribe. Which begs a technical question. How then does a non-Jewish person even come into the fold? How does it work? So Rabbi Moshe reveals that this was the spiritual role of Dinah, Jacob's daughter that's discussed in the Torah. That Dinah sort of becomes his daughter becomes sort of the way in for people who don't have a tribe. What is a tribe? What is this? And you mentioned Ashkenazi and Sephardi. So our customs, how we walk through the world, how we behave, that comes from the father. Whether I'm Ashkenazi or Sephardi, that comes from the father. What tribe I am comes from the father. But the fact that I'm Jewish at all only comes from the mother. Only comes from mother. And you ask me like, well, what does that mean? How does that work? What is that? What is this piece? Now we can say, oh, it's the soul. Well, what is that? What does that mean? And how come the father has no, let's call it, contribution to the fact that the child is Jewish? But if the child is Jewish, then the Jewish father has tremendous influence on the behavior and the way that Jewish child then walks and cements themselves in the world. That's a fascinating philosophical conversation. The father's irrelevant unless the child is Jewish, in which case he's extremely relevant. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, that is amazing.
So there's a passage in Proverbs, Mishlei, by the wisest of all men, King Solomon, and he says this interesting. I have it over here. So it says this: Shema b'ni musar avicho va'al titosh toras imecho. You've heard this before.
Yes.
Listen, my son, to the musar, to the discipline, to the teachings of your father, and do not forsake, do not let go of the Torah, the instruction of your mother. Here we see King Solomon revealing the father's role and the mother's role. This is not the source for how we know a child is Jewish, actually. That's actually in Devarim. I think you have it there. Do you want to just deal with that quickly?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, from what I understood, the source, and this was quite a surprise to me when I first learned this. It's in Deuteronomy, Devarim, chapter 7, I think verse 3, where this is a technical discussion in terms of, it talks about how you can't, like, effectively a person can't intermarry, and then because your son might stray from you. Now, in Hebrew, you have different conjugations for male and female. And the point is there are two conjugations that are both male. And based on this, the commentators are like, we see that from here, we're concerned about your daughter or son and not your son's son if they intermarry, which means that your daughter or son is Jewish and not your son's son if they intermarry. That's generally, if you want to see more details, go there, look at Rashi. The sources are in Kiddushin and Yevamos. I'm not going to go on to this whole technical discussion, but it is a verse. It is not because it is a verse. That's why.
It's not because we don't know. So I can't even remember what I was going to say.
You're talking about how Moshe, like he writes
about Dinah.
Yeah, about Dinah, correct.
Okay, so now back to Dinah. So now, what's the way in for somebody who's converting? Well, they don't have the mother's womb. They don't have the existence that's inherent to a person, which is why they go to mikvah. Mikvah is the ritual bath full of water that a person goes to when they convert. That represents the womb of the mother. A mother takes 40 weeks to bring to term. Not a coincidence that the amount of water we need in a mikvah is 40 measures. Everything that's 40 in the Torah is connected to creating life. 40 years in the desert, 40 days on Mount Sinai, all these different things. That 40 is why there's a gestation period of 40 weeks. And then we convert that to this basin of water that a person goes into to basically remove themselves from the world. You go underwater where you can't breathe, where Moshe says you can't breathe, and you're basically, not able to live. And then when you reemerge, you've reemerged and literally as a newborn person, which is where the born again Christians get this from. It's where they stole baptism from, all these different things. So when I come out, now I'm part of the Jewish people. But how did I get in? I don't have a mother, I don't have a father. So says Rav Moshe, says that was Dinah's role. Dinah's role and why she's so fundamental in the Torah is she's that 13th secret way in where she's the mother of all of these people.
Okay, got it. I think if I can just create the connections here.
Do it, baby.
Yeah, nice. So what you were saying is if a person converts, what tribe are you in? Now, as background, there are 12 tribes, right, for the 12 sons of Jacob. And now if you're a convert, then really you don't belong in any of them. Like, where do you convert into? That doesn't work like that. So that's where Dinah, the 13th kid, the daughter, comes in, which is the sister of the 12 tribes. And so whoever converts effectively through Dinah. That's fascinating. I've never heard that before. That's awesome. It took me a while. I was like, oh, what does Dinah have to do with this? But now I see. I see where you went with there.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because that motherly idea is just why you can't get back out. I mean, like in Judaism is the only faith that I'm aware of that it doesn't matter what you believe or what you practice. You are in. You're part of the member of the tribe, so to speak. They say, and that aspect is a spiritual reality. That is created because of the idea of what it means to be brought into the world, to be birthed by a mother. It's a biological representation of a spiritual idea.
Understood. And that is, I guess, like that's the 30,000 foot view of intermarriage. But I guess delving more practically, and I know there is an issue with continuity, but like, I guess just going back into our root question, what is wrong with intermarriage? Like, because I still don't understand. Like, there's this whole this mikveh of water. Like, a person goes in, person comes out. They're Jewish, they're not Jewish. Like, is that all she needs to do? It's like,
I think let's start with why does a mother put the soul into the baby? That creates a Jewish reality, and then why does the father not? We just dealt with that,
right?
So now that that's true, let's look at intermarriage. So now we can understand why a boy marrying a girl would be so horrific, because the Jewish boy marrying a non-Jewish girl literally cuts the line off forever, unless that young lady converts, halachically, realistically into Judaism, as we spoke about now, because that we've dealt with. So I think the question now only, in my opinion, is, well, now, so what's wrong with a young Jewish woman marrying a non-Jewish guy? What's the issue? By the way, everything in terms of intermarriage, the kids are confused. We didn't get it. Kids are confused. I deal with it all the time on campus. I dealt with it with my friends growing up. When the parents are not aligned in the same value system, and if we're going to say that the Jewish value system and the non-Jewish value system are the same, you're wrong. A person is wrong. And if we're going to say what I mean by Jewish value system is insert gefilte fish, Chinese food on Christmas Eve, then we're also not talking about the same thing. Yeah, that's just that's also not real Jewish, right? Real Jewish culture. So first of all, Jewish values and non-Jewish values are different. When those values are different, that's going to create confusion in the home. Let's just start with that.
If you don't me asking, can you flesh out, give me an example of how Jewish values are different? How did your friends grow up confused? Just taking a practical example.
Well, you're talking about, okay, you have this set of grandparents and they're celebrating Christmas, and maybe my father, who's the non-Jew or whatever, doesn't really believe it, but the grandparents really do. So now I'm going to that holiday, and there's church and all these different things that I'm doing.
Okay.
And then over here, there's the bar mitzvah. Torah observant Jew is not going to be in this situation. So we're talking about conflicting value systems of what the continuity of the future looks like. The statistics are, it's going to be upwards of 80+% that in a generation there's going to be no Judaism in the home whatsoever. So the idea that we can have both is not a thing. Now, if they decide, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, and like honestly, to just drive home the point, I actually taught at a Sunday school when I was in Dallas, and there was this one kid who was very sharp. He was like 13, and he would be there every other week at Sunday school, and because the other week he was at Christian Sunday school, he was at church, and I was like,
Right. Right.
Okay.
When a person is born to a Jewish mother, so it's built into the system. We spoke about why that is. We can go back to it again. It's a reality of where you're coming from, right? So how do you create a new reality? So if I jump in a swimming pool and I pop out and I'm like, I'm black. Why can't I be black? And I remember talking about one of my friends, at my friend's house for Shabbat, and there was a guest there who was not Jewish and was black. And we were talking about Rachel Dolezal, who had faked her way to the president or vice president of the NAACP. She was white, but she had like the cornrows and the whole thing. And we were talking about this. Like, can you be black if you are not black? Right?
Well, I mean, I'm curious. What did this person say?
So I said, I was pushing very hard, like you're doing now. I said, one second. I said, Denise, 1 second. She supports the black community. She cares about the black community. She's in the black community. She got the haircut of the black. Why can't she just be black? And Denise was like, yeah, if that's true, she's black. Now, is that true? Is she black? Can she check on the thing on Harvard University? What's her name? What was the senator? Elizabeth Warren style? I decide I'm Native American. Can I do that? Why does the government care so much about ethnicity and not about belief system? Why is that? So I think this gets onto the point we're talking about. When it comes to identity, when it comes to spiritual matters, I think even the government understands. I can't check a box that says I'm Jewish, therefore I get a special treatment. Now, you got non-special treatment because you were Jewish for a long time, okay? But that's not going to work. Writing, even if I write check, I'm Muslim, it doesn't help. The government is only going to let those boxes be checked if you have that DNA. We're not talking about that. We're talking only about belief system, only about not what I feel, what I believe. So if a person says, I feel Jewish, what do you believe? If you're converting, you need to be subservient to that belief system. We can argue about Reform, Conservative, and Orthodox conversions, but nonetheless, you have to subscribe to that belief system in order to generate a new identity.
Right.
I'm funny and I like gefilte fish makes me Jewish. What?
I guess
I like chitlins and Lil Wayne. I'm black. That's like the most offensive thing I've ever said. Like, right. No, of course not.
Right. You know what? I actually love that you said, because I was like, that is offensive. And I was like, yeah,
why is that offensive? And we put up with it. We're like, oh, they love Jackie Mason. Like, let's bring them into the fold. Like, what are you talking about? That would never hold up in any other community.
Right. Yeah. I can only imagine you
We're
like
selling ourselves so short.
Yeah. That's actually, it's funny and it's really sad and still hilarious. That's such a great analogy. I love it.
Back to Noah and Joanne. If she converts for him, forget about the technicalities, and that's not smart. It doesn't work because he's not going to wake up in 20 years and why am I Jewish? She was never Jewish and she knows it too.
Got it. So, wow, that seems like, that does answer the question. So you're saying, I'm going to summarize it and tell me if you think what I'm saying is correct or what you meant to say was, the issue with the continuity is that even if, you're saying, is this true? Even if she does convert, but she doesn't believe it in terms of she only wants to convert from herself. And let's say, again, taking that quote that Noah's sister-in-law says that, you feel Jewish, you're funny, you're like, obsessed with your family or something like that. So
are those universally Jewish things? Give me a break.
No. But I guess, yeah. So, I mean, I guess, is that another issue in terms of like, but let's say she sincerely, it seems like the implication seems like at the end of the season too, that it's not explicit, but it seems implicit, like where the show is going, that she will agree to convert. So
if it's for him, it's not going to work.
But it seems like the implication is for herself in terms of she wants to do Shabbat. That's what she says. She wants to do Shabbat. And Shabbat, I think, means like, Friday night dinner or whatever.
Sure. I mean, so then Great. So now we're talking about technicalities. Is she converting according to Torah and this and that? You asked me what's wrong with it. So from Noah's perspective and all those different things, now it depends. We have to are we going back 30,000 feet? Are we going to we have to decide where we're gonna zoom in on?
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I guess let's just do practical. Like again, like is she? And I know that there are differences between Reform and Orthodox conversions.
Right.
I guess let's just spell it out briefly in terms of. So now she comes to Noah and she says, okay, like I'm willing to. You're in luck. I do want to convert. I decided to do this for me.
Yeah.
I do still want to ask one question in terms, because I think this is a question a lot of people ask in terms of, some people might hear this whole question of like intermarriage. Is it okay? Is it not okay? Why is it okay? Why is it not okay? And they'd be like, come on, give me a break. This is so archaic. Who cares?
Right.
What difference does it make?
Who cares?
It's like white people refusing to marry black people, or vice versa, or like who cares if you're a different culture?
Yeah.
And Judaism values change. Judaism does change. So I do think, we can't end this episode without discussing that. So
okay.
What is our response to that?
Our response is like this. We do not care what a person's skin color is, or ethnicity, where they come from, what their country of origin is. There are black Jews, there are Chinese Jews, there are Japanese Jews. Some are converted in, some are born into these families. We could not care less goose egg what a person's DNA is. We are the most accepting, wide, big tent organization ever founded on this face of this earth. As soon as a person is Jew, like, oh my God, Jew, unbelievable, part of the family, right? So what does it mean that Judaism changes this and that? So we adapt and change are different. I need to adapt to my new reality. Let's talk about Theodore Herzl, whose first idea of how do you end anti-Semitism, first idea, mass conversion to Christianity.
Really?
Mass conversion to Christianity. That's idea number one.
I'm kind of surprised he even said that, because that clearly did not work. They tried that in Spain. Yeah.
Mass conversion to Christianity, and all of his children died as Christians. Now, they were Jewish because they're Theodore Herzl's kids, but right? His second idea, let's put a state in Africa somewhere and land that's not contested. His third idea was this Israel business. Okay? So we're talking about, are we stopping anti-Semitism? There are so many things to discuss here. We don't know where to begin. But the idea that Judaism changes, first of all, the adaptation that we've had over the last 2,000 years is calculated and decided by the Torah itself. If you remove yourself from the litigation of the Torah, and by the way, our Rabbi Gershenfeld has a great class in this called The Foundation of the Conservative Movement, which the original name was Catholic Israel, which was
really?
Catholic means pluralistic. It means
really?
like Catholic means like the majority rules. That's the idea of Catholic. That's what Catholic means. So you can Google it, okay? The idea of Catholic Israel is everybody gets a vote. Everybody's vote is equal. And whatever we vote, that's what's going to happen. Judaism classically in Torah doesn't work that way. And by the way, how come the Orthodox did not get it to vote? They excluded the Reform from the vote by saying, if you're not willing to die for Judaism, you don't get a vote. And if you don't subscribe to our legislation we're going to pass, you also don't get a vote. So they got both the groups out, and they had their own vote, and that's how the conservative movement was born. Take a look at that class, right? So if you're going to outvote the laws themselves that prevent you from it's a non-starter. You're talking about lifting a rock that's too heavy for you. It's a paradox that shouldn't exist. And that's really what we're talking about here. Yes, Judaism adapts, but that adaptation is built into the Torah. And you need to ask Rav Moshe Shapira, Rabbi Beryl Gershenfeld, Rav Aaron Feldman. You need to ask Rabbi Schachter, how does this work? They're the ones who are guarding Torah and Judaism over the last 50, 75 years. And that's how this works. The adaptations do not get to be decided by the plebeians who, met somebody they shouldn't have met in a place they shouldn't have been, to do something they shouldn't be doing. And it's really a red herring of a question. I thought Judaism changes. I thought, who said that? Why are you saying that? So that has to be understood, which is really a conversation of rabbinical law. What is rabbinical law? Where does it come from? What are the sources? Let's get a movie that talks about it, and we'll talk about that next time.
Fair enough. I think that's
a wrap.
Yeah, I think this is a great conversation. I guess before we sign off, do you have any any last messages, any final thoughts about this, or questions that I should have asked that I did not?
No, I think this is fabulous. It's an important discussion, and this is an important conversation because as media, Netflix, wherever the show is, continue to push ideas that really make us think like, well, yeah, why does that matter? So hopefully it makes us think, why does that matter? And seek real answers like what we're discussing now. And hopefully it's not going to make it a place where like, yeah, like what I want and I want this, like that's scary. That's a very scary place to be, that we're deciding for ourselves. And when it comes to Judaism, we are trying to understand one question: what does God want from me? So if I'm not going to adhere to that question, and I'm not going to give that question any credence, then of course the person's going to be able to say what they want.
That's fair. Then they'll just think, what do I want?
Yeah.
This is great. Rabbi Rick Fox, thank you so much for joining us again.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Ophir. This is a beautiful forum to discuss, I think, some of the most complicated and vexing issues of our time. And I think it's done in a beautiful and entertaining way, which is the way it's meant to be.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for the scoot.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for tuning in to the Dilemmas on Screen, a Jewish Perspective podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. If you have any suggestions for a moral dilemma you'd like analyzed, feel free to send it over. Thanks again, and see you next time.